adult panel for people with nystagmus. What we have a series of a group of panelists here. Each of us have nystagmus, and we will give our perspectives on nystagmus, and we'll answer any questions, and we can have a discussion about nystagmus and what our experiences have been. So what I'll do is I'm going to ask our panelists to just give a brief introduction to themselves about, what they do, what kind of nystagmus they have, what their vision is like, and just a little bit about what their experiences are, just so people in the audience have an idea a little bit more about you and what your experiences are. And I'm just going to go across the top of the board here in the order that I see them here. The next person I see is Michelle. So Michelle, can you give a little introduction to yourself?
Yeah, hi. I've met some of you already, so some of you have heard this. I do have nystagmus from birth. I grew up not knowing anybody with nystagmus, kind of lived a normal life, and I do also have a son with nystagmus who is 20 at this point. I do drive. My son drives as well. And I started out in corporate America and working for AT&T for several years. So I have a college degree, I've gotten my master's, and I also have my teacher's certificate, which I went back to school and got. So right now I'm a math teacher for 6th graders. And yeah, I'm willing to help anybody who has any questions. I got involved with ANN probably about 10 years ago when I started to get curious, having my son, and he was about 10 at the time, and it brought me to ANN, brought me to a wonderful group of people who are just fantastic resources, just have given me such great resources, support, and friendship. So it's great to meet lots of new people this weekend.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Let's see, next on my list here in my order is Roz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roz Adekunle, and I have congenital nystagmus. I didn't realize it was nystagmus until I was in college. I was always told that my eyes were weak. That's the closest definition I got to it. I'm the only family member that has nystagmus. And I've been in ANN since about 2005, on the board. And currently I'm retired. My background is in benefits and training and development. I am a grandma. I have 3 kids, and I have a passion for the children that have nystagmus. It's my dream to help build their confidence and be able to teach them to be their own advocate for nystagmus. So I just want to welcome everybody once again for being here.
All right, thanks, Roz. Next on my list here is Ed. Ed, would you give a quick introduction to yourself?
I can't hear Ed. Can anyone else?
Oh,
Now
sorry. My name is Ed Chin. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I heard about my nystagmus probably when I was 4 or 5 years old. That was kind of when the eye doctor did say, I have the strabismus and the nystagmus. But like I said, it's been pretty much a lifelong journey, just kind of figuring out, what I needed. It wasn't until I met a low vision optometrist that's when I actually saw all the visual tools. And that's kind of really, that was my first time. I think when I was 25 was when I got bifocals, when I got a CCTV, when I got, certain things that it's made life so much easier. So that was my introduction. So I joined and after I had at the board, after I had gone to my first conference in 2019. So I pretty much been like pretty much 40 years, just pretty much like in the dark, like had no clue. There are other people out there had no clue, that there are, other ways of work hacks or stuff like that. So it's been a great journey, and I'm happy to help anybody that's, trying to figure it out. So.
All right, thanks, Ed. And looks like our last on my row at the top here is Dan. So Dan, sorry, but you're the last one I got here.
Oh, that's great, Joe. Hi, I'm Dan Rose. I am from Madison, Wisconsin. I work in health insurance, actually. I'm a director of marketing and product development at a not-for-profit health insurance company here in Madison. I have congenital nystagmus. Have had it since birth. Had a similar path to a lot of folks here. Had not interacted with or really met anyone else with nystagmus until I got involved with Anne. It was a very singular experience to myself, and it's been really amazing to have this opportunity for kind of community and other experiences. I think my nystagmus is pretty well adapted, generally speaking. I do drive, like Michelle mentioned for herself as well, and I'm an avid traveler. Have kind of gone all over the place as much as possible.
All right, thanks, Dan. And I'll give a little background about me. I think I gave a little bit at the beginning in the president's address. I'm Joe Embrico. I'm currently the president of ANN. I found out about ANN probably back in 2006 or so. And I think I was just curious about the nystagmus, because at that point in my life, it's just, your eyes are what your eyes and are, and you see what you see. We're not going to do anything for it. So I was just curious about the condition, wanted to find some information. So I had done, just an internet search for it and came up with the American Nystagmus Network. And I said, they have a conference. Oh my God, they have a conference. It's like next month. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that was last year. Oh crap. So then I waited a year for the next conference to be, which was Pittsburgh in 2007. And so I went there, and it was a complete I'm going to try it. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh and see what happens. And who knows? I was like a complete flyer, had no idea what to expect, didn't know anybody, and just kind of went there. And I remember being somewhat uncomfortable about the nystagmus. I remember when I first walked in there to register, just someone had just asked me point blank, "Do you have nystagmus?" And I remember feeling it felt like a really invasive question. I was like, "Oh my God, how do you just ask me right out of the blue like that?" And so I learned a whole bunch about nystagmus and about, all about the condition from the presentations. And I was fascinated being an engineer, fascinated by the work that Dr. Deloso had presented, because he's an electrical engineer, and he presented a bunch about eye movement recordings and all the different, control systems for the eyes. And he's doing a bunch of analysis of the waveforms. And like I said, being an engineer, that just, hit me right in the right spot. I was like, oh, this is fascinating stuff. So I, continued to go to the conferences, met a group of people who have nystagmus, some friends that, I've made from the conferences. And we actually we get together like every year. Either we go to the conference in the summer, or we plan a separate trip where we all kind of converge on some city. And so there's a group of friends that I made from the conference that we've continued to hang out to this day. Let's see, I'm trying to think of what else I was going to mention off the top here. My nystagmus is damped out over the years, so my vision is pretty good. Like I said, my vision, I think, is I have a peak vision is probably pretty good, but I have to spend a lot of effort to kind of get to that. And I do drive. I talked a little bit about that in some of the other sessions. And well, that's about all I'm thinking of right now. So I think we'll see if anybody has any questions. I know we've talked a lot about so far today. So if anybody, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll mute you. So you have to type stuff into the chat or into the question box. Or if you don't have a question, or if you just have a comment, you can just comments too. That's fine.
Christine, you can go ahead.
Hi, thanks. This is maybe a question that's been touched on before. This is my first conference, and so I've been in and out of conversations trying to capture everything I could. I was just curious if it's just me, or do other people have problems like with using binoculars or microscopes or anything that tries to, focus your vision into something similar to that? Is that a common thing, or is that just me?
Yeah, I mean, I know it is a problem for me. Can't speak for everybody, but I think anytime I'm forced to look into a machine that puts both eyes separately, I have a difficult time. So I will either close one eye, or sometimes I'll actually put like my left eye in one of the things and leave the other one. I mean, talk about awkward and, situations that we spoke about earlier. It certainly is awkward. But yeah, so bottom line, yeah, it is very difficult with those kinds of tools.
Yeah, I think your experience is very, anything that traps my null point for me, where like I really need to get over to like at least 30 degrees to kind of like Joe said, like I can get to a pretty good vision spot, but it takes me some work to find it. And if I'm sort of being forced into like a normal sighted person's vision, like that's very, very tough. I've had more luck when I've needed to use those things because I shoot a lot of photography, and I do a lot better with single eye viewfinders. And you can get some of those even if you want to do like bird watching and stuff like that, that you can use.
I find that when I look in a binocular, I can see that my eye is moving and trying to focus within a contained area, and it makes it really hard to focus. And I, like Michelle, will just use one eye to try to focus into the binocular. And also, I experience that when I have my eye test, when they put you in the machine where you're reading the lines. I have the same problem. And I actually have to like sometimes take a deep breath and say, okay, just calm down, just calm down. So
100%, yeah. Joe, I don't know if you are seeing the questions. I don't know if you want me to help with them. I do see a few questions that have come in the Q&A. One of which was, have any of you tried the eye drops mentioned on Dr. Hurdle's session? I have not.
Yeah, I haven't tried them either. And yeah, feel free to, answer questions as we see them here. If I miss something, that we don't have to be formal here. Anybody else tried the eye drops?
no, I haven't.
Any of the attendees tried the eye drops?
Yeah, and so someone also asked, can you hear? We can't see or hear you, the participants, unless you raise your hand or type something. So Mickey, I see your question, but we don't see you unless we unmute you to ask a question. Are there any other questions?
I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but I went into the chat and not the Q&A. So it sounds like, or it seems that the questions are going to come through the Q&A.
Yeah, I think everyone has the ability to do both, but yes, I was just looking at the Q&A, and you're right, that's where they're coming in.
Yeah, I mean, Q&A makes sense. I mean, if you put them in the chat, I think we'll see them as well.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure about the drops, how they're still experimental or are they being used clinically? I'm not sure actually about that.
There are no options to unmute me or to show my picture. Right, that's correct, because we have to, if you raise your hand using the React, I think at the bottom of your screen, you should see raise hand. If you raise your hand, we'll see it, and we have tech folks who will unmute you. You can't do it yourself.
something that we talked about in our kind of breakout room yesterday that might be a good like question for all the panelists right now would be just like any tips and tricks or things around eye contact. I know a number of people in our breakout room expressed that that was sort of a challenging thing for them.
Anybody want to answer that?
I don't know that I have any tips or tricks. I mean, it's definitely always been a challenge for me to make eye contact. I think it's just depending on the situation, how important the eye contact is. Sort of, I don't know that I have an. It's hard. It's hard work. I know just having today, even though I'm not making physical eye contact with everyone, just trying to keep my head straight all day looking at the screen, I'm exhausted. I don't know if anyone else with nystagmus can relate. I've taken Tylenol because I have a headache, and it's a complete sign of what I deal with when I have to make that eye contact and try to do it for an extended period of time. So I do have a story about eye contact from when I was after college, when I was on an interview, and it was probably the worst interview I've ever been on, because there was the person who was interviewing me had vertical blinds behind him. And needless to say, I didn't get the job because that's one of the biggest things is eye contact when you're, interviewing. And I knew that, and I was trying so hard to look at this guy, but the blinds were just starting. I mean, I was getting dizzy. I was getting a little nauseous as the interview went on. And hindsight, I wish I had the guts at that point to explain to him what I was seeing and experiencing, but I didn't. I didn't have that. I was like 22 years old and I didn't have the courage to do that. So I think my advice would be, if you can get up that courage to explain to someone, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Michelle. I think as I have come to embrace more and be more just like open on expressing it kind of early and in a matter of fact sort of way, in everything from professional to sort of personal settings, it's just a lot better when I can just sort of be honest, because then you're not like distracted, or to your point, like I can look straight at the screen, but boy, it's a lot of work to do that for a long period of time. And I think if you can, to your point, if you can get up the courage, what I really have found in a lot of situations with like people who I know or work with, like a lot of them express like, oh, I never even really noticed that you don't look straight on at me. And it's like, it's a much bigger thing to us. And it feels like a much bigger barrier than a lot of other people even perceive.
I agree with that. I try to give eye contact, but when I can't, I find if I tell the person, it makes me feel more comfortable because it's the elephant in the room, you've addressed it. And I've also noticed that even people with 20/20 vision may not give you eye contact, where you look at them or they're explaining something, but they're not looking at you. And I'm sure it's not because of your nystagmus, it's their in deep thought about what they're about to say. So what I find is we kind of glance at each other and then we look away when we're talking and thinking at the same time.
Yeah, and I'll add about eye contact. I mean, I still feel uncomfortable with eye contact even to this day. It kind of stemmed from growing up. Every time you make eye contact with someone, I seem like invariably I get the question, "Oh man, why do your eyes do that?" So it's like, all right, So it's like, so still feels like that question is going to come, or something like that's going to come up, even though I'm completely aware that that's silly, but so that still makes me feel uncomfortable a bit. But so I have to kind of keep reminding myself every time that I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. It's like, well, you're fine. This is okay. You look at somebody's eyes. One interesting thing I notice I do though is that I feel uncomfortable when making eye contact with someone while I'm talking, But I noticed that when they're talking, I tend to want to make more eye contact, or want to make sure I'm looking at their face, because I think it's because I'm reading facial expressions and the nonverbal communication piece that I want to be able to capture as well. So I do find that, like, if I'm talking, I might look away, like Ross said, glance and look away a little bit. But then when someone's talking, I tend to zoom in right in on them, because I want to see what their face is doing as they're talking. It's just an interesting thing I noticed.
That is interesting because I've recently saw videos of myself and I think I do the same thing, Joe. Yeah. There's a question that was put up here. It says, I'm trying to get the email of the Brazilian researcher from the first session. She had a fast slide and I didn't get a screenshot. Anyone have it handy? So Joe, maybe you can answer, because I know that some of the resources are available. And
Yep. I will. The video is going to go on the website, but I can find the email address and I'll put it in the chat.
And then the last part of that question said, has anyone tried that type of training or any type of visual therapy? And again, my answer is no, I haven't done any visual therapy, or I guess, you know what, when I was a kid, I went to, we used to call them eye exercises. I don't know if it is anything like what they do currently. I always thought they were a joke when I was a kid, I'll be very honest with you. And they used to make me trace things. They used to, I don't know, I never felt that it did anything for me, but I don't know that that has anything to do with the therapy that they use today. So I'm not really familiar. Anyone else on the panel have any experience with that?
I just got permission to talk.
Go ahead, Antonio.
I don't know if this is visual therapy or not. And I don't know if anybody else went through this, but one of my eyes is stronger than the other. And as a kid, they actually made me wear an eye patch. And I don't know if anyone else had that. I would wear an eye patch. I don't remember what the regiment was because I would fight it with all of my might. But yeah, as a kid, I do remember them making me wear an eye patch to try to improve. So I'd wear an eye patch over my stronger eye so that my weaker eye would get more training in a sense.
I went through that as well. I couldn't tell you if it helped or not. I really don't know.
The patching is typically a treatment for strabismus. So you have a misalignment of the eye. It's to force the brain, as you're developing, to use the eye so you don't end up suppressing that eye. And the idea is so you get both eyes will develop. So it's typically more for strabismus, so you don't develop the amblyopia or the poor vision in one of the eyes.
Interesting. I've never even heard of that before.
Yeah, it's they basically, you tend to do that when children as the eyes are developing. Patching is definitely one thing they'll do. Depending on if you don't wear the patch, sometimes they'll do something like they'll have eye drops, which will kind of blur the good eye, kind of force you to use the other eye. And understood, it's kind of it's rough if you're a kid, because like you want to use the good eye and like you keep forcing to use the other eye.
I guess that's kind of tricky in conjunction with nystagmus too, right? Because I know that when I even with Dr. Hurdle's presentation, when you cover one eye, it actually makes the nystagmus stronger in the other eye. So I almost wonder, I just wish I was too young to really remember, other than I knew I had the patch, but I wonder if I get that makes sense, like to cover the strong eye to build up the other, but when the nystagmus gets worse, that had to have been really frustrating. It's probably why I hated it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends also your specific, nystagmus condition. If I understood Hurdle's discussion, he was saying that you could have a fusion maldevelopment, which was like definitely causes the covered eye, or the uncovered eye to eat, or you could have a latent component to your INS. If you had those bits, I think that would definitely make patching more difficult, I think. But you don't necessarily, not everybody has those kind of latent components or fusion maldevelopment. So you may not be, if you cover one eye, that the nystagmus gets worse. I think it depends on the person, as much as I understood it.
And I'll speak. My son did a chemical patch, and that was what they used. Was it's a drop you put in the eye that blurs the vision, so you don't have the effect of having a patch, but it makes that eye weaker, so the other eye has to work harder. And so you can do chemical patching.
And from what I understood, I thought, and maybe it's different for different doctors, but I thought that usually they would try to do the patching first, and if they had trouble with the compliance, with basically, not wanting to wear the patch, they might do the chemical patching or the drops, because then, you can't do anything about it. Once you get the drops in your eye, you can't see.
It's not as much a treatment, but contacts were like life-changing for me when I was younger. I think all our other panelists on right now wear glasses. It looks like I see dramatically and like measurably different with contacts. I know my doctor thought that it might slow the movement down, or maybe just the larger like field of view means more of the vision's kind of usable. But I was like, I could not see very well on the periphery as a kid, and I get a lot more usable out of it with the contacts.
Now that's interesting that you talk about contacts. When I was younger, I used to wear contacts for not very long periods of time. But what I found was it had a psychological effect on me, not having my glasses on. And it made me realize that I wore my glasses, maybe I'm getting a little philosophical here, but I wore my glasses to hide my nystagmus. And until I became more confident and more comfortable in having nystagmus, was I able to wear the contact lenses. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
I think it does, yeah.
It was like a shield to me, wearing glasses. Now I wear them, just because it's convenient. You throw them on and throw them off. But when I was earlier, that was why my preference was glasses, just so I could hide behind them, I think.
I tried contacts as a teenager, and I had a really hard time. I always felt them. And I know contacts have changed over time. I had what they had, like these little hard ones. They were very tiny. So my eyes would move and they would fall off my eyes sometimes. And I'd have to I had this little plunger and I'd have to plunge it out of my eyes. It was horrible. And I don't know if that had a lasting effect on me, because when I tried bigger, softer lenses later on in life, probably as a young adult, I would say, I don't know, I just always felt them. I was never comfortable wearing them. I couldn't seem to look to the sides without feeling like something was there. So I don't know if it was psychological or not, but I just could never do it.
There's been a couple of research studies, one out of the Leicester in the UK, actually a couple out of Leicester in the UK, and one out of Moorfields Eye Hospital, where they looked at contact lenses and nystagmus. And the results were they looked at spectacles, regular glasses, the rigid gas permeable, and I think this regular soft contact lenses, I believe. And they looked at, what people's vision was like on using each of those methods. And the results were a little bit inconsistent. One of the studies said, yeah, there's definitely a benefit with the contacts. Another study said, well, they're all about the same, or there's no real correlation. One isn't necessarily better over the other for in general over the population. So it seems like one of those things where it might help you, it might not, but tend to be worth a try. Science doesn't necessarily say that it's going to be generally helpful for everybody, but it still could be.
In terms of glasses, I know, and I don't know much about contacts, but my glasses I have a darkening that goes onto them. They have an anti-glare, and new ones that I've ordered are going to have blue light blockers on them. And I don't know if contacts also has that type of technology associated with them. So that's another reason why I don't get contacts.
Yeah, they certainly, I don't know of any that have the darkening. And I have exactly what you just said. And I actually used to not be able to see my glasses when I could see myself on the screen. And these seem to have like a blue, because they do have that blue reflection. I don't know if you guys could see it. I could see it, and which bothers me, but I guess it's helping, with glare of things. But yeah, it's annoying though. I see blue.
Yeah, my glasses are thermally activated, so whenever I go out into the sun or when I'm driving, they turn into sunglasses.
Yeah, that's mine do too as well.
Yeah.
It's
I thought-
helpful. Yeah.
I thought Hurl had mentioned just in his last presentation that you can get some sort of version of tinted contacts. I don't know exactly what that is, but he did mention that.
Yeah, he said tinted, like color tinted, but I wonder if I don't think like a sunglass though. I don't
wasn't
think
sure
they
if it was-
change color.
I wasn't sure if it was something to do with tinted. So like for like the albinism, where you have too much light that gets to the iris, so you tint the contact lens to try to cut down on some of that light. Maybe that helps vision. That's what I thought, but I'm kind of guessing there.
Yeah. They do make transition contact lenses now. They don't darken as much. Oh, that's okay. So they do. So they do have them. RC. I don't know who RC was. Oh, is that who's RC? I saw RC
Oh.
earlier.
Yeah. I know, I think that's the lady with the little boy,
I don't know.
correct?
If she said, or if it's, yeah, they are super cool. They darken immediately when they go down, when they go out in the sun. That is very cool. I had no idea that they existed. That is very cool.
That's interesting. I wonder how does it visually look to another person? Will your eyeballs turn darker? So if you had light eyes, would it darken your eyeballs? It's curious.
Here you go.
Thanks.
Yes,
RC.
my husband has tried them. We never really had heard about them before either. But he got some trial lenses a few months ago, and it's really funny if you put the lenses in an open contact case, and you carry the case outside like onto a deck in the sun, you can see them turn black.
Wow.
Now when he's wearing them, he says it definitely takes down the brightness, like the glare from the sun, but it's not as great as wearing a pair of sunglasses. Like our son has transition lenses in his glasses, and those get very dark, like a regular pair of plain sunglasses. So you won't get that same level of darkness with these transition lenses, but it does help. And so he likes to wear them when he's driving, because sometimes he forgets to put his sunglasses in the car, just to kind of make it a little bit easier on his eyes. And I'm blanking on the name of the brand that he uses, but it's one of the big ones.
Do they change even when he's driving?
They do darken just because he's out. I guess the UV goes through the windshield. I don't know, but
Because transition lenses, well, I guess unless you have an older car, the windshields don't let in the UV rays. So mine don't get dark in the car.
interesting.
Yeah, so I always have a prescription pair of sunglasses. I had originally gotten them for driving, and then the first time I wore them, I was like, "Wait, what's going on?"
Oh, that's
And
interesting. Maybe
yeah,
that's
they
why
don't.
he felt, yeah, maybe that's why he felt like it's not like a huge change, but he liked them. But yeah, if you are sensitive to light, then traditional sunglasses or transitional lenses and glasses will probably be better.
Thanks.
also mention I did put the name of the Brazilian researcher. She's actually from the University of Toronto. I put the name and the email address in the chat. if
Yes,
you
I
haven't
got
seen
that.
it.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Any other questions? Oh, there's a hand up. Natalie? We want to move Natalie. Oh, there we go. Someone else is on it.
Hi, I have a question. We talked about eye contact and how it affects relationships with other people. And I'd like to ask you about how that works, how it's worked for you in the context of dating. I'm single and I find that nystagmus hinders on my ability to develop romantic relationships. And I wonder what your experience has been. I know a lot of you have significant others. So how was it for you when you were dating, or if you're dating now, what's been your experience with living with nystagmus in the context of dating?
Well, for me, I guess I can answer a bit. It's been a little rough. I'll admit that. Well, I think more of the difficulty was one of the things that you would tend to like do in public if you're trying to get somebody's attention. You would try to hold their eye contact, which is not something that I would really want to do or would tend to do at all. Or so there could have been people who had been trying to get my attention, or would have held eye contact if I had seen them or if I had done that, but I probably missed those. So that's not so hot. I did find though that over time I did get a little more comfortable with making eye contact. So at least if I was on a date with someone, I would make sure that I would make eye contact. And so I'd have to kind of, I don't want to say force myself, that's a little too strong a word, but at least be mindful that I should be making eye contact. Beyond that, other things that the only thing that helped is like the driving. I do drive, but I don't like to. So going on dates or different areas, if you got to go find some other place to go, or for me, like finding parking spots is horrible. I hate doing that. So those are the kind of things that I had more difficulty with. Not so much eye contact, a little bit, but yeah. So those are things. Those have been my experiences. Anybody else on the panel want to comment? Ed, we haven't heard a lot from you. I don't want to put you on the spot here on this question, but I'm just
And how, for instance, I always ask myself, how soon in the relationship should I disclose my eye condition? Like we said, it's like an elephant in the room. Do I talk about it when I first meet somebody, or do I wait until later? That's always been my question.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably no right answer for that. It's just, it probably depends a bit on you. I might say, and I'm kind of, this may not be, a great answer, but I feel like if it was something, if your vision is something that you might affect how the dating might go, might be worthwhile bringing it up, so that it's an explanation. So like, if your behavior was different, or if you did something differently, or or perhaps even the eye contact thing, you might bring that up just to explain it, and then might be like, oh, okay, I understand now. Otherwise, the other person's like, wonder why they're not making eye contact, like they must not like me. So if it's something that the explanation might help the process along, maybe you bring it up, but it could also just be a comfort thing, if you'd rather bring it up later. I think I'm not sure if there's a good answer for that, to be honest.
Okay, but thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
For what it's worth, I always, oh, go ahead, Ed.
I was thinking for me, like a lot of times, on a date, what I do is I kind of figure out where we're going, if we're going to a pizza. So I kind of look at the menu, or, there are things, I'll ask at the counters, like, I'm sorry, I can't see the menu up, up on the board. Can you show me a paper menu or something like that? And so, like I said, so if it becomes like those issues, I would kind of bring it up and just say, like, I have low vision, but I'll bring up stuff like that. A lot of times, I would try to take the bus. I can drive, but I don't drive, and that's just my choice. For me, it's a lot more peace of mind. It's a lot more stress free for that. So a lot of times, I will purposely pick areas that are on the bus line or something like that. So it gives you time to go there. It gives you time to kind of like get there before they get there. But so for the disclosure part, I would say I would disclose probably when I get to the point where it's actually I'm interested or it's serious. That's kind of when I disclose, but usually not on the first date, not usually on the first couple of dates, because if I don't ever see that person, do I really need to share that part of myself? So that's kind of my experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand. Makes sense.
I don't know if this would be an answer for you, but I'm speaking from the point of view of just not necessarily dating, but just a relationship of any kind with a person. If I'm just listening to you, and if you can wait and tell them later, is that saying that your nystagmus is not very noticeable? So you can tell the person later on that you have low vision? And that's one question. And my second question to that, Natalie, is, do you feel more comfortable when you share with someone else that you have low vision? So it may drop that barrier by just saying upfront, and then they make a choice to continue the relationship or continue the conversation or continue the friendship. Now that you've told them that you have low vision. So what's your response to that? Is it uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'm still a little shy about disclosing my condition. I'm still in the phase that I try to cover it up, and work around it. It's hard for me to just come out about it. I do with certain people that I feel more comfortable with. It depends who I'm talking to, really. It depends what kind of friendship or relationship I have with that person. But it takes a while to build that kind of confidence into somebody. So, yeah, so that's been my experience so far. I'm a little slow at disclosing it, and I try to work around it still. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Elliot, I think you had your hand up. You have a question?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, we can.
It was not a question. I was going to respond to what Natalie was talking about. Two things. First of all, I hope participating in this conference would give Natalie a little bit more confidence to disclose it and feel comfortable about her condition. But I have to tell you how fortunate I am. I've been married 57 years to the best partner I could ever think of. And we met at a party when all the lights were out and it was totally dark. We held a conversation, and then we had come to the party with different people. We held a conversation. I forget which one of us went to the bathroom, and by the time the other person got back, the other one had left with the group they came with. So we got to know each other in the dark before I ever had to look her in the eyes. And it's worked out fine all these years.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Wasn't there a game show called Dating in Darkness? A reality show?
I don't remember that one, Joe.
If I may add, in a sense, nowadays people can meet and get to know each other a little bit on the internet. There's a lot of dating applications and things, but it really is a little different from actually being there and touching and talking to the person in real life and still not being able to see them. It was a very unique situation.
I also wanted to contribute to this conversation. So I don't know if anyone else has this issue, but I'm kind of insecure about my peripheral vision. So if I see anything move, I automatically look to confirm that I saw movement. And so when you're on a date and that movement happens to be somebody else also of the opposite sex, you typically get in trouble for checking out someone else while you're on a date with somebody. And so I got into a lot of trouble with that. And I never really say, oh, I have nystagmus. I'm more of like, I just joke around. I handle a lot of things with humor. So I'm just like, oh, I'm blind. Like, don't even worry about it. It's fine. And, you know, my wife, much like me, is very analytical. So whenever she would catch me looking at other girls or people or things, and she would just ask about it. She's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, and I'd tell her why. And she's like, okay. And so now when I look at people or things catch my eye, she's just like, okay, I know why, and it doesn't bother her. So, and we also work with, we help people that prepare for marriage, and we talk about the importance of open and honest communication, just in general from a standpoint of relationships. And we typically have fear of what we don't know, right? So if someone doesn't know something about you, it's a fear associated with it, and they act irrationally because of it. So, I mean, you don't have to necessarily say nystagmus, but I'm more of a proponent of being like, hey, I have a vision problem. Like, it's obvious for me, I wear glasses. Like, it's not new information to this person, right? You're just putting it out there on the table. But yeah, so that's my little tidbit on relationships.
Thank you.
I think also just that we sort of said this earlier, it's just having that confidence of being able, it's not like you have to share your whole history of your nystagmus, but sometimes what we're afraid of revealing turns out to be a really good thing once we've shared it, and it makes you feel better once you have, because you've gotten that over with, and you've got, you know, just explaining like, yeah, my eyes move, just is, it makes me not look straight maybe, but, and that's it. And maybe, you know, if it's someone who is worth being with, right, or having a relationship with or a friendship with, they're going to understand. So if it's someone who doesn't understand, right, isn't it probably not someone you want to spend too much time with anyway. So
That's so true.
yeah.
Natalie, I also want to add, the more comfortable you get with having nystagmus, the better, because you're going to come across as not feeling that you're broken or substandard. You're going to come across with, matter of fact, I have nystagmus. And sometimes when you show that vulnerability to someone else, it makes them feel more comfortable. And also think in your mind, I have nystagmus, but everything else about me is perfect. So just feel good about who you are, and it's going to come across. And when you meet a person, like what Michelle was saying, if they can't accept you for who you are because you are accepting them for who they are, actually, because they're not perfect, then maybe it's someone you shouldn't be with anyway. So why even waste that time?
I'm just curious. I figure we're running low on time here, but I was going to ask anybody, the panelists, or actually anybody in the attendees here, anybody have any experience with medications that they tried for nystagmus? You know, positive, negative, anything like that? I'll volunteer that I tried. I can't remember the name of the drug. I wish I could. It was. I'll have to look it up. It was a drug for Alzheimer's disease. Yeah, that's what the main reason for it was. But I had tried that for a little while. You know, you had to kind of ramp onto it. And it's interesting is that I really did notice an improvement in my vision. Like a lot of times I would have to look hard to see something to get down to that good vision. When I was on this, I didn't have to really struggle to I just saw stuff. Didn't have to work at it. But the problem was it gave me like, it made me really dizzy. And so at first it was kind of like, you know, you maybe had a beer or two. That's not too bad. But then like, it's like all the time. And like, yeah, it's like, I can't, you know, so I end up stopping that. But I'm just wondering if anybody else used any medications, any experiences with those?
I have not.
And we're not counting alcohol.
Or that could be too, right?
Makes you
know?
feel much better.
Yeah. I know people have said that alcohol makes their eyes slow down. To me, it feels like the opposite. It feels like I
Mine
can't
get
see as
worse.
Yeah.
Mine get worse.
Me too.
But I have heard that as well, that it slows them down. Not me.
I wish no, maybe it's better that it speeds it up, because I would probably become an alcoholic, because I would say, oh, wow, my vision is so much clearer when I drink. Oh,
Mine fly when I'm, yeah. So I guess no one else has done any other medication, huh?
Mm.
No.
Doesn't look like it. Raise your hand if you had. Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, Natalie has something.
Yeah, me again. I tried Neurontin, and that was a very strong medication for me. I couldn't deal with the side effects. And I tried baclofen, and that made me quite tired as well. So now I'm taking propranolol, which has less side effects. But yeah, that's been my experience with the medications I tried.
What is the medication supposed to do? What does it do for you? How does it improve?
The propranolol has improved my vision in the sense that it slows down the eye movement just enough that I was able to get a driver's license. You know, before that, the nystagmus was a little bit more visible. It affected me more. So now it just helps to slow it down a little bit, just enough to be noticeable as an effect. So, yeah.
Natalie, do you have congenital, like since birth, or acquired?
Yeah, since birth, yes. And I started taking the propranolol, I think it was in 2004. So yeah, so it's been a while that I've been on that medication. Yeah, but it took some trial and error. The first two didn't work out, so.
interesting.
So it improves your vision. If it allowed you to drive, it obviously not only slows down the movement, but improves your acuity. Is that?
For instance, if I'm in the optician's office and I'm looking at the chart, it helps me to read maybe one more line. Without the propranolol, I was maybe at 20/60, 20/50, and now I can go from 20/50 to maybe 20/40 under the right circumstances, you know, so it's a bit of an improvement.
The little bit that I wanted to add to this was I've never tried any medications, but that wasn't because I wasn't willing to, is because I was always told that there's nothing you can do for nystagmus. And I know that's part of a lot of what this conference is about, is breaking the misconceptions. But yeah, from multiple different ophthalmologists, I was told that there's nothing I could do, no medications I could take, no exercises I could do, or anything like that.
I think sometimes when doctors say that, I think they're saying that you can't cure it. And I could be wrong, but, and there's also doctors that have very different opinions, you know, some who are very much against, you know, they just think you just live with it and you can't cure it, so don't do anything about it. But we've learned there's certainly treatments that can slow down or help different people.
At least improve it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we're running out of questions here. So, but we're almost at time here. So any last, Nicholas, anybody else want to bring anything up? All right, sounds good. I want to thank our panelists. Thanks, guys, for sharing with us here. Thank everybody who attended for sharing as well.